Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Reesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Dennis Welch, songwriter, recording artist, and author. Please enjoy Dennis Welch. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today I'm chatting with Dennis Welch, songwriter, recording artist, and author. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Mari. Appreciate you having me. Thanks.
I am excited to have you here to chat about creativity with me and all of the things you do and how creativity shows up in your life. But before we get there, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
So, I think the easiest way to explain me, if there is a way, is I've always been a word guy. So I could read and spell before I started school, and they even had me tested at the University of Houston. And I went in and met with my mother, and I went and met with the principal of the school, this very stern lady named Miss McCree, so my test with her was she said she handed me a book on the other. She was sitting behind her very large desk, and she handed me a book, and she said, just read this page that I right here that I have open, and then close the book and tell me what you read. And so I did. And when I finished telling her what I had read, she looked at my mother and she said, he does not need to start in the first grade. He needs to start in the third grade. Because he's already reading at a very high level, and my mother said, no, I don't think so. She goes, you know what? Let's be creative and let's figure out a way to help him not be bored. And so you know what she did for me, Mari?
What'd she
So
do?
the first day of class, okay, and I don't even know if this could happen now or not, but it was time for the reading circle. Everybody in the different groups. And so anyway, I sat down in my reading circle, and Ms. McCree comes into the classroom, and she said, Dennis, you can come with me now. And I thought I was in trouble already. I just got there. And so she held my hand. I remember this because it was so, I thought, wow, this very stern woman cares about me enough to hold my hand. What is going on, right? We would go down to the school library. I'd never been in a library, I don't think, at that point in my life. I was sort of an inner city Houston kid, and I read other things, but not that. So she walks into the library, walk all the way to the far wall, and she said, see, Dennis, all of these books are for kids in the first, second, and third grade, and you can choose any book you want. And here's what I want you to do. Every day when your reading circle meets, politely and quietly excuse yourself and come down here and read from these books. But then she turned around with me and looked at this, what looked like a really cavernous library. And she said, but the truth is, you can read any book in this library because you're able to. And so why don't you just come down here and spend that hour reading? Well, Mari, think about what that did to me. So I read all of these. I read the Mickey Mantle story. I read Charlotte's Web. I read the works of Mark Twain, many of the works of Mark Twain, history stuff. I mean, all of a sudden, I fell in love with books and words, and I saw what the right words could do to me. How Charlotte's Web was so emotional, and so anyway, it's probably with that kind of beginning and that kind of encouragement. I probably shouldn't be surprised that I've written two books, that I work with authors in my publicity business during the day, that I'm a songwriter, I've written 500 or 600 songs. None of that, all of that, probably the seeds really were started there. So I'm a word guy, and I know the value of choosing the right ones. I do.
I love it. I mean, what a gift to be encouraged and supported. I'm curious with creativity and the creative things that you do, what does it mean to you to be creative?
that's a great question. I think a lot of creativity probably has a lot of elements, but the one I think about the most, because it's what I do the most, is a biblical term, ex nihilo. It means you're creating something out of nothing.
Mm.
That's what the Genesis 1:1 said, that God created the heavens and the earth. It created, that word is ex nihilo. It's from nothing. And so a lot of what I do is go into a room. This room I'm in now is my writing room, and I create something out of nothing. And to me, that's the maybe the purest form of creativity. But there's other things where you already have elements of something, and you say, let's figure out how to solve this problem or how to make these work or whatever. There's all kinds of creativity, but for me, it's mostly, you know, uh, getting in here and being present to
Mm.
be able to parse and to find, find the absolute right word. I mean, you think about songwriting, I have 3 minutes basically,
Mhm.
and I have to say everything I want to say in this song in 3 minutes, and I have to make you care. And
Mm.
so that leaves no room for shortcuts for me as a writer.
Mhm.
I have to find the right, as good as I'm able, find the right thing to say to you when I sing this song. And so that's my definition, is it's ex nihilo.
Mm. I love the creating something out of nothing experience and what it means to be that and do that. I'm curious, knowing that you are work in the publicity business and with books and are a songwriter and recording artist, what is that overlap of creativity from doing something for someone else versus doing something for yourself?
What I found, Mari, is that everybody has a story.
Mm.
There's always, the hooks are in every, human beings are, I think we're designed to put ourselves in stories, to relate,
Mhm.
all of that. And so the the trick for me in my day job, and by the way, if I do a Zoom call with somebody and they send me their manuscript and I start reading through it, there was a great 60 Minutes a year or two ago where this young lady interviewed Paul McCartney, and they were in his iconic, studio with all these Beatles memorabilia around him. It was very cool. And so she asked toward the end of the interview, she said, "So you don't read music?" And here's what he said. No, no. He goes, you know how jaunty Paul McCartney is, He said, no, no, I don't. He goes, but I see music.
Mm.
There was no follow-up question to that, by the way, because there's, essentially, he was saying, I don't get it either. Okay. I don't. And so that's the interesting part of this, is figuring out, if I go through the process with somebody and I don't see the music, if I
Mm.
don't see the story, if I can't see the hooks, then we don't take those. Even if we need a customer, we still say no, because
Mm.
I feel like I have to be a good steward of people's money and be
Mhm.
honest. I sleep really good at night doing that, by the way.
I'm
And
sure.
but you know what? But that's so. But if I see the music, if I see it, then I know how to tell that story about that author and that idea and that book or whatever. Um, and it's amazing what happens when you do that properly and you take the time to get it right.
Mhm.
We have crazy things happen around here where people nobody's ever heard of. Most of the people I work with are first time authors. Many of them, maybe most of them, are self-published,
Mm.
and yet we've had people, contribute to Forbes. We've had people in the
Mm.
Wall Street Journal, and all that. But that all happens because, like songwriting, you gotta figure out how to tell the story properly.
Yeah. And so is I'm hearing that it's words help you
Mhm.
specifically convey, but what is that? How do you know when you've been touched by something or that you have that feeling or the that I'm not quite sure what people call it, they find themselves in the pocket or with a musician the song just syncs, or how do you know when you
I don't,
found it?
well, I think it's Robert Frost who said, no tears in the poet, no tears in the reader. And
Mm,
so for me, I have a friend in Nashville that I co-wrote a song with on a couple albums ago, and he's a Hall of Fame songwriter. He wrote "I Can't Make You Love Me" for Bonnie Raitt and "The
mm,
House That Built Me" for Miranda Lambert. He's been doing it at a high level for a long time. And when we first met, I said, "Hey, Alan, are you a studio rat? I mean, do you understand what's going on when you go in and do your demos and all that stuff?" And he said, "No, I don't have any idea what this guy's doing."
uh-huh.
He goes, "Here's what I do know." He goes, "When I come and listen to the final mix of that demo, if the hair on my arms is not standing straight up, he has
Mm.
to redo it."
Oh,
And so there that happens in songwriting, and I
yeah.
think it happens in all kinds of creativity where, you're just going along doing what you're doing, and all of a sudden it's like you touch the third rail and you
Mm,
put your hand and go, what was that?
mm,
Let me do that again. I have a song on this album called Blind. And I sat down at my little Tinker Toy piano. I'm really a guitar player. I'm not really a piano player, but I wrote Blind on my piano. I was
mm,
sitting in here one night, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, turned off the TV, sat down in here, and then started tinkering around with this idea that I had brewing, but there was nothing cohesive about it.
mhm,
It just was something that I thought, okay, okay, maybe. And then all of a sudden, I get to the chorus of this song, what turned out to be the chorus. And the chorus is, "Here I am alone again, wondering where it all went wrong." I mean, that, the hair on the back of my neck stood straight out. And I was
mhm,
like, okay, that's all I have is that chorus.
mm,
But I have to write the rest of this story for this because the chorus is too good. And
mhm.
and so that's how I know. And the secret, I think, so back when I did my first record in 1980, so 45 years ago, uh, I had a producer who was um, he's a super creative,
Mm,
and his name is Kemper Crab. And so about a week before he go into the studio, I was taking voice lessons from his wife. And so I was driving clear across Houston, going out to Pasadena, like 50 miles each way to do this. I mean, so one night I'm leaving his house. I'd done my voice lesson, and he walks me out to my car, and he has 3 album LPs under his arm. And he's one of the few people in my life who've ever called me Denny. My grandmother did. My
mhm.
102-year-old author client now calls me Denny, and I don't correct her, just so you know. She's earned it.
Uh-huh.
And then Kemper called me Denny. And we walk out to my car, Mari, and he goes, "So, Denny, let me ask you a question. Do you think you're doing your best work?"
Mm,
I said, "Well, this is a heck of a time to ask that question. We're going in the studio next Tuesday. We have Andre Crouch's touring band is going to come in and play on all the tracks and everything. And it's a little late to be asking that." And he said, "Well, it's never too late to ask it." But he said, "I'm going to trust you. I'm going to send you home with these records. I want you to play them start to
mm,
finish. Call me tomorrow and tell me if you think you're doing your best work. And if the answer is yes, this is my best work, we're going to the studio on Tuesday. And if it's not, let's, by God, reschedule and get this stuff to where you want it." It was a fantastic lesson. But he sent me home with the first 2 Dan Fogelberg records,
mm,
Netherlands and Souvenirs. Are you
mhm.
kidding? That's not fair. And then he sent me home with a Leonard Cohen record. And
Mm,
I was emotional while I listened to that stuff because that question was kept going, like circling around over and over again.
yeah.
Look what these guys are doing, and you're just rhyming stuff. And so, you know what?
Mm.
So go back and look at everything. So I called him that afternoon. I said, "You know what, Kemper, this was a dirty trick, just so you know." Okay. I said, but you made your point. And I said, "So cancel, move it back, because I'm going back in and looking at everything." And so, you know what, Maury, I still, after all these years, I still send Kemper. He lives in Houston. I send him everything I do.
Mhm.
And I remind him that this is the product, the work I'm doing this second that I think is the best work I've ever done. I said, you
Mm,
know what? It's because of one conversation.
mm,
Having one person in your creative life or in your life period who's their whole agenda for you is your best interest.
mm-hmm.
So when somebody like that gives you feedback and it's not, you don't like it, you
Mm,
still have to receive it and go think about it, because it's like this person doesn't need to be right.
yeah,
They're looking out for me. And so anyway, it was a powerful and very important, you know,
absolutely.
exchange there, right? So yeah.
Yeah. And to be able to kind of set ego aside, because I
Yeah.
think there are many people who probably wouldn't have been able to do that
Oh,
and say,
absolutely. Yeah. And I
yeah.
had great respect for him. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to at least go think about it. And so, of course, I thought about it on the drive home too. I'm sure I was thinking, what am I doing? Right.
Yeah.
But you know what? But it became clearer, what I was doing.
Yeah.
And what's happened is that little mantra, are you doing your best work? I lay that template down over everything I do now.
Mm-hmm.
And so and so my deal is I don't know if anybody's ever going to hear what I'm doing when I'm writing. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know. I mean, I think it's cool now that streaming, a lot of songwriters don't like streaming because we don't get paid very much for it. But I love that my record company pushes one button and this song and this album goes all over the world, all
Yeah.
over the planet. That's a fabulous thing. So, but are people going to really stop and listen? I don't know. But I know
Mm-hmm.
this, if they do stop and listen, I can't I can't do B minus work. I got to do the best I'm with my abilities that I can do. So,
Absolutely. I'm curious when get to a bump in the road or a hiccup or a block or that you feel like this isn't the best work.
mhm.
What's that process for you? Do you put it away and go do something else? Do you like toil over it? What's that experience for you?
Well, it varies. Sometimes, I go running through the fields chasing butterflies, you know, I'll just stop. If it's too difficult, and not that writing is not always difficult. I mean,
Hmm.
it's supposed to be, I think. I mean, there are certainly times where, written songs where, I wrote a song in 20 minutes or something, or 30 minutes. Okay. And that's fine when that
Hmm.
happens, but it's not normally like that.
Hmm.
And so what I've found is that if I can take my mind completely off of what I'm doing, so
Hmm.
I'll take our dog for a walk, or I'll go hit some golf balls here at the golf course, and I'm not a good golfer, but it's just something different.
Hmm.
And vice versa. So if I'm doing something here with, for a client, my book clients, and I'm
Hmm.
stumped, I'll turn around and pick up my guitar over here, or I'll sit
Hmm.
down at my piano and play piano for 5 or 10 minutes, and you can feel the dam break and
Hmm.
things start to happen. And here's the other thing is none of us probably sleep enough. And you know what? Sleep is my superpower. Even in my old age,
Hmm.
I'll be 70 next January. And you know what? I sleep I have a regimen and I get to sleep at night. And doing these gigs has forced me to, break my regimen a little bit. But I
Sure.
still get my sleep. And look, sometimes you've had it happen. I'll go to
Hmm.
sleep at night and I'll look at something on purpose, by the way, because I know this is how it works. I'll look at something I can't solve and I'll think, okay, I'm going to sleep. And I go to sleep. And your mind, your brain organizes, the science, it
Hmm.
organizes itself when you sleep, if you sleep well.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the healing in your body comes from sleeping mostly.
Hmm.
And so, and I can't name how many times I wake up in the morning and I go, I got this. I know what that is,
Mm.
or sometimes even in the middle of the night, I'll
Mm.
wake up and go, I mean, it happened to me a few weeks ago. Somebody said, hey, you're going to be in Georgia the same time we are. Why don't you come do 30 minutes and speak about leadership to this group that I'm teaching? And then sing Why Not Me, which is a song that was on 2 albums ago. This guy has ends all of his things all across the country with why not, with my version of Why Not Me, and now people know it enough to sing along with them and stuff. So he said, just come over there and here I'll pay you a little something for that and all that. So I went over there and I sang for these people, and
Mhm.
so it's just whatever it takes to. Here's the thing you can't do. You can't if you're really kind of called. I feel called to do this. I feel like this
Mhm.
is the reason I'm here.
Mm.
That all of these resources and people who came into my life at exactly the time I needed them.
Mhm.
I mean, that's not an I don't that's what makes it hard for me to believe in accidents, right?
Mm. Mhm.
And so the thing you can't do if you feel like it's something you have to do is you cannot get up and walk away and say, you know, screw
Mm.
that, I'm not doing that. That's too
Mhm.
hard. No, you're gonna think about it, you're gonna come back to it, and you can say that you're not going to come back to it, but that obsessive thing that happens with creative people,
Mhm.
it does not go away. So
Sure. Sure.
you, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like the inspiration can strike you anywhere, but I'm curious,
yeah.
what are the things that inspire you the most today, like in your life today?
Other writers,
Mm.
hearing them, I mean, the experience of writing with Alan Shamlin, the guy I was telling you about, and Hall
Hmm.
of Fame writer and Hall of Fame friend too, was uh, was as inspiring and instructional as
Mm.
anything I've ever done in my creative life.
Wow.
We took 6 months to rewrite one of my songs.
Hmm.
And by the time we got to the end, I was tired of this song. And I had 80% done. I could not get the last verse written. And
Mm.
he said, I'm not going to co-write this, although he was co-writing it with me. He said, I'm
Hmm.
not going to put my name because people know me, they don't know you. And so they're going to say, look, Dennis sat in the room while Alan Shamlin wrote this song, which is not
Hmm.
true. This is your song. We're,
Yeah.
we're, we're rewriting it. So we went 6 months. The song is called Worth My Time. And you know, I mean, I've been married 45 years to a woman I met on a blind date 46 years ago. I've never gotten over it. So all the love songs I write are about her.
Hmm.
But the difficult love songs are obviously not, I have to assume a persona of unhappiness because I haven't had that.
Mm.
So this song says, hey, you know what? If you're living in an abusive relationship with
Mm.
somebody, whether it's physically or verbally, or you're just under their thumb or whatever, you don't have to do that. You can
Mm.
grow, you can grow a backbone and grow, and you can step out of that until that person's either take it is well, and they can
Mm.
be in a relationship or whatever, but you need to save yourself, basically. So is it
Mm.
worth my time to get over you, basically, is what the song is about.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
we got down to the end, and we had what he called me every night. I'd sing him the song, and we both got emotional about, you have to get this song finished because you can throw a rock out your window and you can hit somebody. You're going to hit somebody who's living in this kind of relationship and doesn't know that they have any options.
Hmm.
So we have to finish it. So we got to 6 months, and he goes, one night we're on a call, and I sang him what I thought was the last verse, and he goes, no, that's not it. He goes, a
Mm.
great song puts you in a trance, and all of your last verses are taking me out of a trance. And so you got to keep me in a trance. I'm like, what are you talking about? Okay. So that night I said, Alan, is it going to ruin your songwriting career to have your name on a song with a no name Texas songwriter? And he goes, what are you talking about? Of course not. And I said, well, do you know what this last verse might be? And he goes, I probably do. I said, well, you know what? Why don't, in the fat, don't you go write it and put us out of our misery? Okay. And you know what he said? He said, give me 2 weeks. Now, that's a deliberate person. You've been working
Hmm.
every night on a song and you need 2 weeks to write the last verse. Anyway, so he left the phone. He came back in less than 5 minutes.
Mm.
He goes, what about this? Is it worth this pain and your words that bruise? Should I be the one you love to use? If I have to ask, then I should know that it's worth my time to let you go.
Mm.
give me a break. I said, you thought of that in 5 minutes? He goes, well, I don't want to pull rank on you or nothing. He goes, but you know what? My sword is sharper than yours because this is what I do every day, all day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so people like that, I mean, I love seeing that because everybody thinks they can do this stuff because like 3 minutes, who can't write a 3-minute song? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of people.
Yeah.
But when you see somebody who's been doing it at a high level and continues to get better,
Mm-hmm.
you see what they go through to get to the finished, deal.
Yeah.
We're up there visiting with Alan. I was doing some stuff in Nashville, and his wife invited Susie and I out to their farm for
Mm-hmm.
lunch. And I was thinking, this is when we were writing the song, I'm thinking, I hope he doesn't even bring the song up. Okay. So I'm not gonna bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
So of course we finish lunch and he goes, come on in. Let me hear that last verse. And so I said, so I played it. It wasn't the latest, it wasn't the last verse.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, no, that's not it. Not quite. I said, Alan, do you guys write like this 6 months every day on the same song? He goes, and I put this in my book on communication. So what are you saying is the title of it. This is the
Mm-hmm.
last story in the book, I believe. He reaches under his writing table, Mari, and he pulls out a dictionary thick stack of legal paper, all in ballpoint pen, no technology of any kind. And he pushes it across the table to me and he said, that is one song I've been working on for 7 years.
Wow.
And he goes, so yes, we do write like this. And he goes, stop whining and go home and let's get this song finished. Okay. And so that's the behind the scenes stuff that people, the
Yeah.
average, I just finished writing a screenplay with one of my author clients. And you know what? The average screenplay this is average,
Mm-hmm.
has been rewritten 12 times.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness.
Do people really want to do that kind of work? I don't know, but I do because at the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
or end of my time here, I want to think that
Mm.
my work had some impact on people that was positive.
Sure.
And I don't think that's possible. I don't know. Maybe I'm being too pristine here about creativity, but I think it's impossible to have that kind of impact just doing
Mm.
middling
Mm-hmm.
stuff, because it's Tuesday and you're getting paid for it or whatever.
Yeah. I'm I'm thank you first of all for sharing the story and the behind the scenes look because it is fascinating
Welcome.
to hear how people work and what things stump them and how
Yeah.
you move through it. I'm curious if you'd be willing to share a little bit about your new album and that process and what it is.
Well, it's the perfect, I think it's kind of a perfect example of how beautiful and interesting creativity can be.
Hmm.
You know, I did a record in 2000. I'll give you a little bit of context.
Hmm.
And uh, and I came home and I told my wife, I said, you know what, my buddy and I produced this, and it's good. But you know what? But I think this stuff could be in another place, like another gear.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not an arranger, and I'm not really a record producer. I'm a songwriter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to wait. I'm going to write as if I'm going to go in the studio soon, but I'm going to wait until I find that person.
Mm.
18 years went by,
Wow.
and I was putting stuff in a drawer, right? And I came home one day and I said to Susie, I said, you know what? For the first time in my life, I'm worried. I said,
Mm.
I'm worried because um, uh, I'm putting all this stuff in a drawer. I'm in my mid 60s. If something happens to me, our kids or whoever is going to come in and just throw it out. They don't know what these songs are doing.
Mm.
I hadn't even demoed a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, well, you have that little prayer list that you pray through every morning. It takes you an hour to pray through it. And you have everybody else on the list, but you don't have anything for you. So why don't you put something on there for yourself?
Mm.
Oh, that's a novel idea. Okay. So I put something on there. I don't even know what I was asking for, really. And 3 months later, we're driving through Nashville and we have dinner with some friends, and they're beautiful adopted children. Well, the husband had been in Little River Band for 20 years at that point. He was producing records for them. He was writing songs for them. He's really a prominent, smart, humble guy. Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
he's been our friend too. And I'm like, I'm not going to ask him to help me, right? Well, here's what happened. So, another example of there being no accidents. So, we're in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of this big cavernous restaurant, Mexican restaurant, and I'm sitting directly across from Rich. Rich Herring is his name, and all of a sudden, Mari, he goes, so what are you working on? Because I know you're always working on something. I said, well, I got a new song called "Why Not Me" that Susie thinks is the best thing I've ever written, and he goes, what are you going to do with it? And I said, I don't know what to. That's the $1 million question. I don't know what to do with it. I'm gonna put it in a drawer with all the other stuff. And you know what he said? He goes, why don't you sing it to me?
Mm-hmm.
I said, right here in the restaurant. He goes, right now, sing it a cappella to me. And so I felt foolish, but I started singing the song to him, and I got through the first verse and chorus,
Mm-hmm.
and he put his hand up. He was emotional. He said, first of all, Susie's right as usual. Okay. And second of all, I'm supposed to help you with this. Did you know this? He
Mm-hmm.
goes, let me produce the demo on this. This is fantastic. So my heart leapt, and I thought, well, at least there's one song that's going to have a professional producer doing it. We'll see how that goes. So we
Mm-hmm.
did Why Not Me? He called me and said, what else have you got? And I said, I've got this sort of Roy Orbison-ish song about forgiveness called I Can't Remember. And he goes, okay. He goes, send that over. And then we did that song. And those
Mm.
two were already the best recordings I'd ever made in my life.
Wow. Mm.
And so he calls me after the second song and he said, hey, how about let's make a record? Because he said, there's really something. I didn't know you had this kind of material. And he goes, let's make an album. So we make an album. So no albums for 18 years. What Love Makes Us Do, the album came out in 21.
Mm-hmm.
Then If I Live to Be 100 came out in 23.
Mm.
And then Strong that came out a month or so ago. So
Mm.
Strong. So we're working on Strong. We thought we had the title track, Relentlessly, which is another song on the record. And one Sunday morning before we went to church, I was noodling around on my piano and I wasn't planning to do any writing. I was just killing time.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden I sort of hear this, and it's not wasn't audible, but it was in
Mm.
here. And
Sure.
it was for a man of faith and an optimist, you sure do live a fearful life.
Mm.
And you know what? 99% of the things you're afraid of have never happened to you, and they're never going to.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't you stop living that kind of life and write your manifesto?
Mm.
So Strong came rolling out. I
Mm.
mean, I wrote the bones of that in 25 minutes.
Wow.
And I've never had a reaction to a song like this. I've had people. I had this big mountain of a man at my gym. I played it for him. He runs the place, and
Mm.
and he had got tears in his eyes, Mari. And he
Mm.
said he leaned across his desk and he said, "Dude, everybody feels this way, right?"
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so, it's the I've done some co-writes with a guy named Michael Peterson that was a big star in the 90s. Um, and another great Nashville writer, a guy named Mark Hauser, who passed away on July 31st. He and I wrote a song called Bigger Than Me. That's
Mm.
one of my favorite things. And so, it's the record that I want to make. And that's what I'm doing is I'm making Rich and I are doing the albums that we're not trying to hit a moving target. You
Yeah.
know, somebody asked me, and somebody in the publishing business asked me a few weeks ago. I was buying some consulting time from this lady. She's amazing. And I said at the end of the conversation, she said, "So tell me your definition of success."
Mm.
And I said, "Well, first of all, I said I want to say for people what they cannot say for or don't know how to say for themselves.
Mm.
Number two, I want to start as many positive and uh, healing conversations as I can. And music is the best way I know how to do that. It's the greatest conversation starter in the
Mm.
universe. Books might be second. Okay. And I said, and then lastly, when I sit down in my writing room, I want to write I don't want to take any shortcuts. I want to
Hmm.
write the best song I'm able to write. That's my definition of success. And you know what she said to me? She said, "You know what, Dennis, I've been asking this question for years and nobody's ever answered it like that."
Hmm.
She said, "You didn't mention charts. You didn't mention George Strait or somebody cutting your song and making you a bunch of money. You didn't even mention money."
Hmm.
I said, "Well, I know." I said, "That's not the question you asked."
Yeah.
Would I like to have my songs in film? Absolutely. I have people, Alan Shamlin said, "Dennis, everything you write is so visual. Every song could be in a movie, right?"
Hmm.
And so that would be cool. And I might make a little money instead of spending money to do what I do,
Hmm.
but I said, "That's not your question." I said, "Your question was my definition of success." And by my own definition, I already feel like a successful songwriter.
Hmm.
I'm not a household name, but I hear my songs around and I think, you know what? That's pretty good. So anyway,
Well,
and I wish more artists would adopt that, Mari, because then you know
yeah.
what? Then you wouldn't be. Matthew McConaughey said the other day. He goes, "Look, there's a difference between being joyful and being happy." He goes,
Mm.
he said, "When I was just trying to be happy, I was happy when good things happened, but whenever I did finish the work and it wasn't a big hit, he goes, I was unhappy."
Mm.
He goes, "What
Yeah.
I've learned how to have joy, the joy of doing it. And then you know what? Whatever happens," he said, "by the way, when I'd adopted that, I started doing my best work."
Mm.
So maybe there's something to that, for creative people. I don't know.
I think you're onto something. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's that great quote, comparison is the thief of joy. So
Yes, it is. Yep,
when
absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
when we can step away from that. But thank you so much for sharing
Oh, sure.
the
You're welcome.
ins and
Thank you
outs
for having me.
of
Yeah.
your new record. And I have one last question.
Okay, I'm ready.
What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
It feels like home.
Mm-hmm.
It feels comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It's the process itself is so deep in my DNA that uh, I feel like I'm supposed to do it. And the only time I'm really satisfied I mean, deeply satisfied, is when I do it and
Mm-hmm.
I look at the finished product or listen to it or whatever. So it's so comfortable and inseparable
Mm-hmm.
from who I am.
Mm-hmm.
My son has said the other day to me, he said, "Dad, you might be the only true empath that I've ever known."
Hmm.
I said, "I'm going to take that as a compliment." He goes, "You should. You should, because
Yeah.
because you're not able to walk past people in trouble. You're not
Mm.
able to walk, you feel obligated to
Mm-hmm.
at least try to help, right?" And
Mm.
I think that same kind of thing that somehow that's linked to my creativity. And
Mm.
again, it's a mystery. So
But it's beautiful. It
it
sounds
is
like
beautiful.
yes.
Love it.
Well,
Love it when it happens.
absolutely. Thank you, Dennis, so much for taking the time to chat with me. If people want to learn more about your work, your music, how could they go about doing that?
So I'm a terrible self-promoter, by the way. I can promote you all day. But so if they want to connect with us, they can go to our website. It's denniswelchmusic.com.
Hmm.
And there's a little thing that pops up and they can sign up if they want, give me their email address or whatever. And we do a monthly only. You won't get a bunch of spammage from me. You'll get a monthly newsletter that says, "Hey, here's what we're doing in October. Here's what we're doing in September." So that's one way. And then all of them, all 7 of my albums are all available on every streaming service. You should be able to find it on Apple Music or Spotify or any of those. Um, and that's probably the best way. And starting to do house concerts now. We just got off of a tour for 2 months, 200 miles and 21 states and all that. And these house concerts are my favorite thing. I've played theaters, I've done all kinds of stuff. I love doing house concerts. We're going to
Mm.
do one in Colorado, by the way, in the
Oh,
springtime. I'll keep you posted.
keep me
And
posted. Absolutely.
yeah, so we'll be able to let you know about it if you connect with us. And that's really probably the easiest way. I'm on Instagram
Perfect.
and all that too, but I don't know what I'm doing there. But
That's okay. Well, I will put links in show notes so people have easy access. And thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
me too, Mari. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.